In honor of the late Reverend Jesse Jackson, one state lawmaker proposes a bill that would require all Illinois high schools to provide eligible students with the opportunity to register to vote. Chief co-sponsor Maurice West tells WIFR's Alyssa Kelly he hopes this bill can get young adults to the ballot box, and one voters' rights group agrees.
Youth voter registration, that's something that's very important to you.
Absolutely. We focus on that big time.
Carol Bailey with the League of Women Voters is proud to help register young people ready to cast their first ballots.
In the last 2 years, I've averaged between 50 and 60 voter registration events each year.
A bill moving through Springfield could expand Bailey's mission.
One of the difficult things is to convince administrators, teachers, and staff at the high schools to actually let us go into the classrooms.
Illinois House Bill 4339, or the Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Young Voter Empowerment Act, would require high schools to offer registration opportunities for all eligible students in the state's districts.
Well, I think it's fantastic.
The goal, to get more people to the polls.
I think it will have a positive impact, and it should have a positive impact on voter turnout as well.
This is not a partisan issue. This is not trying to tell you who to vote for. For the longest of times, young people's engagement when it comes to voting is always low. My hope is that this bill will help to change the tide when it comes to engagement of our young people and when it comes to voting.
Some lawmakers argue the bill is not necessary because Illinois already gives residents the opportunity to register when getting their license. But Bailey says the Motor Voter Act is not as effective as going into classrooms.
An awful lot of kids, they're going in there to get their driver's license. That's a huge deal for them. And registering to vote, not so much. But truly, in a healthy democracy, the more people that are involved in the process and that vote in elections, that are better off the country is.
In the state line, Alyssa Kelly, WIFR News.
House Bill 4339 has cleared the House Ethics and Elections Committee unanimously on March 18th. After leaving committee, the bill awaits a full House vote.